You know that feeling when you're listening to native English speakers having a conversation and it feels like the words are just a blur.
Oh, absolutely.
Like you're trying to read a street sign from a train going full speed. It's incredibly frustrating. You're trying to catch individual words, but they seem to just melt into each other.
It's one of the most common walls learners hit. You might know the vocabulary, you feel like you know the grammar,
Right.
but then you listen to real spontaneous English. And, well, it sounds completely different from those uh, carefully spoken examples in textbooks.
Exactly. And that's the puzzle we're really digging into today. We're unpacking why natural, fast, native English sounds the way it does.
Hmm.
And maybe more importantly, we're pulling out the key insights and like the practical techniques from a lesson focused specifically on helping you train your ears to actually understand it.
Yeah, think of this deep dive as a shortcut, maybe, getting you to crack the code of fast English.
We've gone through the source material, and our mission really is to extract the most potent nuggets, those aha moments, and the steps you can actually take
Right?
that can genuinely transform your listening skills.
Yep.
So, okay, let's start with that basic question. Why does it sound so fast? Is it like some conspiracy among native speakers?
Uh, Definitely no conspiracy. Laugh slightly. What the lesson really emphasizes is that this isn't intentional at all.
Okay.
It's simply how English naturally works, for efficiency and flow in conversation. It's about minimizing effort
Yeah.
while still being clear.
Yeah.
Well, clear for other native speakers.
Efficiency. Okay, that makes sense. So what are the specific things happening in natural speech that make it sound so quick and sometimes, yeah, confusing?
Well, one of the biggest factors they highlight is connected speech. Words don't just stop and start cleanly.
Right.
They blend together.
Yeah.
So instead of a very clear, what are you doing?
Mm.
It often becomes something like, what you doing? The sounds literally link up.
Yeah, that linking is everywhere, isn't it? Like, I am going to turning into the super common I'm gonna.
Precisely.
Mm.
And that's tied right into another key feature, using contractions.
Mm-hmm.
Shortening I am to I'm, or maybe lemmy to lemmy. And these aren't just like lazy shortcuts. They're fundamental parts of the natural rhythm of English.
And the lesson also points out that sounds can disappear, right?
Yeah.
Or get reduced, especially sounds that aren't stressed.
Absolutely. Those vowels in unstressed syllables often become that weak schwa sound,
Mm.
or consonants might just get dropped entirely.
Right?
Well, the T in want to is a classic one, right, leading to wanna.
Yeah.
Or the T in and often vanishes. So you hear fish and chips instead of fish and chips.
Okay, so this raises a really important point. It sounds like the challenge isn't usually knowing the individual words themselves,
Often, no.
because often we do know them, but they just get kind of mangled when they're joined up.
That's, I think, one of the most powerful insights from this material. The difficulty often isn't vocabulary. It's recognizing words, when they've been changed or fused together by connected speech, contractions, reductions.
Right.
So understanding fast English isn't really about hearing every single tiny sound perfectly. It's more about hearing the overall rhythm, the link patterns, and picking out the important stressed words.
Okay, speaking of important words, the lesson material really goes into how stress and intonation are crucial for meaning. How does that play into this fast feeling?
Well, stress and intonation add these layers of meaning and structure that our brains process almost subconsciously.
Mm-hmm.
So if I say, I didn't say he stole the money, stressing he totally changes the implication compared to stressing I.
Completely different meaning.
Exactly. The speed might be the same, but that emphasis tells you where to focus your understanding. Natives use this constantly, and recognizing it helps you follow the flow, even when some words are reduced or blurred.
Okay, this is starting to click. So it's a mix of sounds changing, linking up, disappearing, plus this extra layer of rhythm and stress,
You got it.
which brings us nicely to the how. How do we actually train our ears to decode all this? The lesson lays out several key concepts and, crucially, practical methods. Let's really dig into connected speech first.
Yeah, connected speech is presented as, like, the primary hurdle. It really is the glue holding fast English together.
Right.
Think about those examples again. Do you want to eat? Becoming, do you want to eat?
Right.
Or could you help me out? Becoming, could you help me out?
Hearing those back to back really shows the change. It's not just a slight tweak.
No, it can be quite significant. And the lesson points out something interesting.
Mhm.
Sometimes a sound is dropped, like that in want to,
Yeah.
but other times a sound might actually appear between words to smooth things out. Like a little yi sound making the end sound like the end.
Oh, okay.
The key takeaway here is simple, though. The more you expose yourself to connected speech, the easier it gets for your brain to hear these blends as single units.
Instead of struggling to find the individual words inside the flow.
Exactly. Your brain starts recognizing the sound patterns of connected speech itself.
Okay.
And that leads directly to another really powerful concept from the lesson, chunking.
Chunking. Tell me more. What's the big idea there?
So the lesson explains that native speakers don't typically build sentences word by word in their heads, and listeners don't process them that way either.
Right.
We communicate and understand in groups of words, chunks, that convey a single idea. So instead of thinking, how are you, your brain just processes, how are you, as one unit of meaning.
Ah.
Do you want to go? Is a chunk, not four separate words you piece together.
Ah, okay, so it's not just about the linked sounds within words. It's about recognizing whole phrases as single bits of information.
Exactly. And this shifts your listening. You move away from that slow word-by-word decoding.
Which is exhausting.
Totally exhausting. And you start recognizing these prepackaged chunks. Your brain gets the whole idea much faster because it's dealing with larger units of meaning.
Makes sense.
So the lesson really suggests identifying common chunks, listening for them, saying them yourself, just training your brain's recognition speed.
Okay, so we understand the why connected speech, reductions, stress, and these how concepts like recognizing those features and chunking. Now for the actual workout plan, the lesson details several specific practice methods. Let's start with shadowing.
Right. Shadowing. This is a really effective technique they recommend. You find a short audio or video clip, native speakers, ideally.
Okay.
First step, listen without subtitles, just to get the general idea, the gist. Then listen again with subtitles, read along carefully. Now, here's the crucial bit. You pause after sentences or short phrases.
Okay.
You repeat them immediately, trying to perfectly match the speaker's tone, their speed, the emotion, everything.
So like being their echo but a slightly delayed one, focusing on mimicry?
Exactly. But with real intent to copy everything, the rhythm, the feeling, the ups and downs. The lesson highlights that this trains both your listening and your speaking muscles at the same time. It gets your mouth, your tongue, your brain physically used to the natural patterns and speed of English flow. It's very active, not passive listening.
That sounds intense, but yeah, powerful. Now, another method mentioned is repeat after pause. How's that different?
Repeat after pause is maybe a slightly gentler starting point. You play a sentence, you hit pause,
Okay.
and then you repeat it aloud. You're still focusing on accurate pronunciation and rhythm, but maybe not trying to match the energy quite as intensely as full shadowing. You just go through the text sentence by sentence.
So more focused on just getting the sounds and rhythm right based on what you just heard.
Exactly. It's a focused way to work on listening accuracy and pronunciation.
And then there's a faster version called the echo method.
Yes, this one's quicker. You play a sentence, and the moment it finishes, you try to repeat it immediately, like a true echo.
Instantly.
Instantly, matching the speed, the feeling, as closely as you can. The idea here is to build your listening reflexes and your speaking fluency at a native-like pace. It forces your brain and mouth to react quickly to the sound patterns coming in.
Yeah, I can see how that would really push your speed. The lesson also recommends a specific daily practice called the 1-minute rewind. Sounds intriguing.
It's brilliant, actually. Great for consistency and focus. You find any 1-minute English audio or video clip you like.
Okay.
Listen to the whole minute first, no subtitles, just for the main idea. Then rewind. Now pick one sentence, just one, maybe one you found tricky. Listen to just that single sentence. Rewind. Listen again. Repeat it out loud. Listen and repeat that one sentence over and over.
Wow.
As many times as you need until you feel like you've either nailed it or you really understand it.
So you're drilling down really intensely on just a tiny piece of language.
Precisely. And the lesson really stresses that doing just 1 minute of this hyper-focused practice every single day builds your listening muscles incredibly effectively.
1 minute a day.
Yeah. It trains your ear for detail, improves your concentration, and it compounds over time. It feels much less daunting than trying to, analyze a whole movie at once.
That really takes the pressure off. Okay, what about dictation practice? That sounds kind of old school, but maybe effective?
It is a classic, and the lesson explains why it's still so valuable, specifically for fast English. You listen to a short clip, maybe just 1 or 2 sentences,
Right.
and you write down exactly what you hear. You might need to listen multiple times, fill in the gaps, and then you check it against the transcript.
Okay, but how does this specifically help with that fast, blurry speech?
Because it forces you to pay close attention to those little words and reduce sounds that often disappear.
Ah.
Things like articles a, the prepositions to of auxiliary verbs have, are, the words that tend to get swallowed.
Yeah, they just vanish sometimes.
Exactly. The lesson uses that great example. I should have told you earlier. In fast speech, that often sounds like I should have told you earlier.
Right, shoulda.
Dictation helps you hear that shoulda and consciously connect it back to the written form should have. It bridges that gap between the sound and the spelling. Builds attention to detail, memory, focus.
That example makes it crystal clear. Okay, and finally, there's a more conceptual method they mention. Listen and imagine.
Yeah, this one taps into how native brains process language quickly. Instead of getting stuck on every single word, you focus on building a mental picture, a scene, as you listen. The lesson gives the example. We grabbed some coffee and headed downtown.
Okay.
A native speaker doesn't dissect that word by word. They instantly picture, two people, coffee, walking towards city buildings.
So you're prioritizing the overall concept, the scenario, over the precise sound of every syllable.
Exactly. You follow the narrative flow by creating those visual anchors in your mind. They use another example. She ran out of the house, jumped into the car, and drove off without saying a word. You picture that sequence happening rapidly. This trains your brain to connect sounds directly to meaning and context, bypassing that slow, word-by-word translation process.
Makes sense. Now, beyond these specific exercises, the lesson really emphasizes leveraging context and mindset. How does background knowledge help when things are flying at you fast?
Oh, this is huge. When you listen to something where you already have some familiarity with the topic, could be sports, cooking, tech, whatever,
Yeah.
your brain already has a framework. It can kind of predict what vocabulary or ideas might come up next, even if the speaker's fast or some words are unclear.
So choosing content you're genuinely interested in isn't just more fun, it's actually a smart strategy.
Absolutely. The lesson strongly recommends it. It makes the whole process easier, more enjoyable, and you naturally build that context-specific vocabulary. It's called context-based understanding. Your existing knowledge helps you fill in the blanks in real time.
Okay. The lesson also talks about active listening. Is that just more intense listening?
It's significantly more than just hearing the words. Yeah. Active listening, as they describe it, means listening for meaning and for intent.
Okay.
It involves paying attention to the speaker's tone, their emotion, where they place stress. Remember that example, I really don't want to go.
Right.
Hearing the stress on really tells you so much more about the speaker's feeling than just the words themselves.
So you could potentially miss a few words but still get the core message or the feeling by tuning into these other cues.
Precisely. Active listening allows you to infer, to guess meaning effectively, even when the speech is fast or a bit messy. You're trying to understand the person and their message, not just decode every single word perfectly.
This brings us to maybe the most important mindset shift the lesson talks about: patience and mindset. It sounds like they're really empathetic to how tough this can feel.
They absolutely are. The material is very clear on this. It is completely normal and totally okay to miss words.
That's good to hear.
The goal isn't 100% comprehension instantly. The goal is progress. They frame learning fast listening like building a physical muscle.
Right.
You would expect to lift the heaviest weight on day one, right? Every listening session, even a short one, is training your listening muscle.
So celebrating the small wins becomes really important.
Crucially important. Every phrase you catch that you didn't before, every sentence you understand a bit better. These are significant steps. Be patient, be persistent, and be kind to yourself. Consistency is the key, not aiming for perfection overnight.
The lesson also really emphasizes the need for broad exposure to real English, including what they call its messiness.
Yes, real English isn't always neat and tidy like a textbook.
Definitely not.
It includes idioms, slang, grab a bite, I'm a head out, fillers, hesitations, the natural back and forth of actual conversation. You have to expose your ears to this real messiness to get comfortable with it.
And that includes listening to lots of different accents too, I assume.
100%. English is spoken all over the world with countless accents. The lesson implicitly prepares you for this just by using natural speech examples. Your brain needs to become flexible enough to process variations, whether it's someone from New York, London, Sydney, Mumbai.
So actively seeking out movies, shows, podcasts, music from different places is part of the training.
That's definitely the way. The material implicitly encourages using these resources, watching scenes multiple times, maybe with and without subtitles, pausing to repeat lines from movies or shows,
Mm.
or even listening to songs, reading the lyrics, and singing along.
Singing along helps with listening. That's a fun idea.
It does. The material suggests it really helps with rhythm and internalizing the sounds. Plus, because music is often emotional and enjoyable,
Yeah.
the language patterns, the vocabulary, they tend to stick in your memory better. That classic gunna in a song like I'm Gonna Find Another You becomes memorable not just as text, but as a feeling, a rhythm.
Okay, wow. We've covered a lot here. The why, connected speech, reductions, stress, the how, concepts, chunking, context, and all those practical methods: shadowing, repeat after pause, echo, dictation, the rewind, imagining, plus mindset. How do we kind of wrap this all together?
I think the main overriding message from the lesson is this. Understanding real fast English isn't about hearing every single sound perfectly. It's not about catching 100%.
Right.
It's about grasping the main message, the overall pattern, the feeling, the speaker's intent. They illustrate this well with that hypothetical story about a stressful morning.
Oh, yeah.
You might hear spilled coffee, missed bus, late work, argued boss, and even if you miss the little connecting words, you instantly get the picture. This person had a terrible start to their day.
You get the gist, the big picture.
Exactly. And the final crucial point they keep coming back to is the power of small, consistent practice. 5 or 10 minutes a day applying one of these specific techniques.
5 or 10 minutes?
Yeah, it's vastly more effective than trying to cram for hours once a week or something. Choose material that pushes you a little bit but doesn't totally overwhelm you. Find that sweet spot.
So it's about smart, regular training, building that listening muscle day by day.
That's the core strategy. Consistent, intentional practice using these targeted methods, focusing on those underlying principles like connected speech and chunking. It will build your listening comprehension step by step. That fast-moving train will start to feel less like a blur
Okay.
and more like a conversation you can actually join.
That is incredibly encouraging. Okay, so we've gone deep into why fast English sounds fast, explored concepts like connected speech and chunking, and unpacked all these practical techniques: shadowing, dictation, the 1-minute rewind, listen and imagine, all while keeping mindset and context front and center.
All distilled directly from the valuable insights in that lesson material we looked at.
Right. So here's a final thought for you, the listener, to maybe carry away. Consider choosing just one of these small daily practices we talked about. Maybe it's dedicating 5 minutes to that 1-minute rewind technique, or perhaps spending a few minutes echoing lines from your favorite TV show.
Just pick one to start.
Exactly. And commit to doing it consistently for just 1 month, 30 days. How different do you think your relationship with fast native English could feel after that? Give it a try and see what happens.